Hello and welcome to Macstaff Live. Wherever you're joining us today, you're very, very welcome. I'm joined today by Macstaff MD Anthony McCormack. Good afternoon, Ant. Afternoon,
hey, Mark.
Mark Hopkins from Thomas Lee Recruitment. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
And Sarah Bishop, founder of Recruit. Good afternoon to you, Sarah.
Hello.
The gang are back together to debate some more hot politics topics, and for the next half hour we'll be going through the first 100 days of the Labour government and debating how have they done, what it's been like for the country, and obviously with a very strong focus on the recruitment industry. 100 days isn't up until the 12th, so we are technically 2 days early, but we'll go for it anyway. And before we start, I must just say that this shirt was bought for me by my wife 2 years ago. So I didn't pay for that, and I'm wearing my son's socks today.
I see.
Folks, have any of you got anything to declare? Have you seen what I've done there?
I think this was my wife's actually. So yeah,
Okay.
I think that's been donated to me from
back on us at a later stage, so I'd rather it get out of the way early.
from a foreign. Yeah, so that's come from a foreign party. Mine has.
Oh,
I'm declaring I'm a patriot.
yeah, okay, I'll take that. Folks, let's start there before we get into the nitty-gritty of some harder news stories. There's been a hell of a lot of stuff about Taylor Swift tickets and clothes and donations relating to not a huge amount of money here. What's been your thoughts on what's gone on over the first 100 days, and more especially the last few weeks about the donations scandal in relation to what was happening before the Labour Party got in? Anybody got any strong thoughts to kick us off?
I don't mind going first.
Go, Mark.
I said last time that we need a boring government, and we got a boring government. And the reason I say that, look at the stories that are coming out. They're the most boringest, most kind of, you don't really need to know about them. Yes, we heard about Boris Johnson with wallpaper and all the stuff that he did and got on with, and I'm sure we're going to hear about it, but they're not kind of newsworthy stories, front page stories talking about Keir Starmer's glasses and Keir Starmer's suits and all that kind of stuff. They're not newsworthy stuff. The only newsworthy stuff that has happened in the last 90 days has pretty much been the pensions kind of reconfiguration of that benefit, basically making it means tested. That's it. That's all they've done. There's a few things that I think Labour's got a problem with, which is a marketing problem. But I think getting rid of Sue Gray might be part of the solution as well, and just resetting themselves into a better direction. That's it. They're a boring government, and that's all we're seeing at the moment is the most boringest stories of it all.
Fish.
Yeah. Oh, I quite agree with you, Mark. I mean, to be honest with you, my take on it is I think that the whole political system should be changed so that people can't take anything that could be construed as a bribe, given it, in a perfect world. But I think we also need some perspective on it, don't we? We were all chatting in the backstage room before we came on. And, in comparison, so first of all, I think the bigger problem is the press. Like, the bigger problem is the media, because they've blown this into a massive thing with the clothes and the different, perks of the job, as it were. And there's not been a mention that, like Boris Johnson was in receipt of over £6.4 million worth of gifts in some way, shape or form. I mean, that didn't even really hit most of the national press, where this is like becoming front page news. But also from the perspective of the current government, nothing that they've done is outside of the rules or is illegal. So, why it's been blown into this massive story, I don't really know. It's almost as if, the majority of the British press are siding with the previous incumbents. What could you say? So.
Yeah, they miss them now.
Yeah, Anthony, carry on. Just first, let us know where you are, because you look like you're
broadcasting from Recruitment Expo at the NEC today. So there's February in London and October in Birmingham are the two big recruitment events. So shout out to everybody who's here, and do say hello to me in the Union Jack jumper, or swing by the team stand. I think it's like C36. But anyway, like I think you might have hit the nail on the head with the media kind of storm and kind of just making something out of nothing, because I was thinking like they'd kind of perhaps lathered me up really, because I liked the fact that I could kind of maybe jump ship as the government changes colour, because it was so similar. Like I talked about, that basically, he's Keir Starmer's basically a Tory, and I like the pro-business and economic growth, and they were talking about kind of law and order, weren't they, kind of border security and things like that. So I thought it'd be the same, but what I ended up with as the same is the cronyism and the sleaze and the kind of revolving door and sackings and psychodrama even that Mark Hopkins talked about. But maybe it's just the media kind of pushing my buttons, but that's what I ended up thinking. Like it's like same thing, different colour.
Quite interestingly, and I know I make a lot of comparisons to Austria because obviously I lived there half the year, but quite interestingly, the press in Austria can't report on personal things that people are doing personally. So, so if the Chancellor had 17 mistresses and 300 illegitimate children, unless they were bankrolling them through the public purse, that wouldn't even hit the news. So
interesting.
Yeah, so it's weird, isn't it? So because it's, I don't know, it's a lot to ponder on. But as I say, I would go back to that the rule should just say you can't accept anything.
Yeah.
Pay them more as well.
Or cap it at like £100 or something.
Yeah, Mark, you said it was a boring government. You said you wanted one of those last time you were on this think tank on Macstaff Live.
Yeah.
Are we getting what we expected then? Has anything changed? Have you noticed anything whatsoever?
The only issue I think people can really pick up on is, and this is my biggest bugbear actually of this government, is they announced that there was a 20 billion black hole, and then waits until the end of October to do a budget. That to me was a little bit stupid. I think they should have announced a 20 million black hole, did a quick budget, and then did a follow-up budget again in October. So have two budgets basically this year. But in the first budget, let's set the agenda of where we're going to put the money savings and start moving things forward so that people have confidence. And that will affect the economy. The second budget then of the year then is the ideas that they set their manifesto out to do, or the start of their manifesto, because you can't do it all at once. And then follow that up then next year with a normal budget, and then just carry on as normal. What we've gotten at the moment is a literal black hole of policy. We're hearing a lot. The media's going crazy about stuff. Even now, we're hearing that Rachel Reeves is going to change the fiscal rules from Jeremy Hunt's fiscal rules to a new set where they are actually going to borrow against infrastructure or building of infrastructure. So that's going to change a lot of things. And we're also hearing that the 20% VAT on private schools is probably not going to happen this year or in this school year. And the pension credit situation may not happen anyway. It may change. There may be something else to happen. They may even increase pensions even more to cover the deficit for the poorer pensions, or change the rules around how to calculate whether you get pension credit or not. So everything we talked about in the last 3 months has been their biggest problem. This is why I go back to saying they've got a massive marketing problem at the moment in time. And I think they need to tighten that part of it up. But they're still boring.
Yeah, I think with you mentioning the pensions as well, I mean, it's like, again, that's been blown out of all proportion, hasn't it? And in the newspapers, you read the headlines and it's all about, removing the winter fuel allowance from pensioners, which is that's not true. That's just patently untrue. It is means tested. Whether they should have led with that's the first tax thing that they're going to do, I'm not sure, because it just, it gives them, their PR and marketing people need shooting, don't they? Because it's like, basically go out and say that your first target is your granny. It's ludicrous, isn't it? But so A, the way it's been portrayed in the press is untrue. And B, if they'd said, look, we're looking at this because were you aware that I think it's something like 58% of pensioners live in £1 million plus households? So, and everyone's getting the winter fuel allowance. You know, it's like what they spending it on, polo horses. You know, it's like so again,
they're
it's
looking
that
at wealth,
this is
aren't
not the way it's being delivered to the masses, is it? You know, it's crazy.
Right message, poor delivery. And agree.
Yeah, the optics hasn't been good, but again, it's the storm in a media teacup, isn't it? Really, that means testing the benefit. That is a valid kind of way to look at things. I think that they are kind of trying to look at kind of wealth holistically rather than just income, aren't they? In terms of the way that they're taxing, and that's fair, and it appeals to the kind of more traditional kind of Labour voters as well. But I think that we're in a problem as well, and I don't really understand the kind of the back office, so to speak, but I think politicians feel that they've actually got very little power and they're being kind of pulled around by civil servants, and that's hence why the Sue Gray thing came to a head, didn't it? I think they got forced to do that. They said, look, you've got to do something like the winter fuel payment cuts, because otherwise it's unfunded spending that we've got in the manifesto, which makes it like the mini budget, which makes you like Liz Truss, and then everybody's like panicked and they've kind of done an own goal under pressure. But I think Mark's right about they should have acted on that 20 billion kind of earlier. Maybe they knew about it before the election, maybe not, but it needed addressing as the elephant in the room, didn't it?
Yeah.
And because you're at the expo there today, and we're specifically a recruitment-based live today, let's move things on to recruitment and the industry you guys are all work in. Have you noticed anything yourself, certainly in the first 100 days, that has already made a difference, or is the chatter that some things come in, or certain changes are coming that you're getting while you're there over the last couple of days?
I could jump in quickly first. Then there's been not much, there's been lots of rumor and concern, like about, perhaps anti kind of employer type policies, and, caution from industry in hiring because of, upcoming labour laws and things like that. And there's announcements today. I understand. I was with Neil Carberry, the chair of the REC, yesterday, and just trying to calm everybody down that there would be no actual changes until some point in 2026. But it's still the big news, but within a context of that they are serious people in government now taking the opinions of employers and the recruitment industry into account. But we're not necessarily going to get everything that we want, because the recruitment industry is quite pro temps and gig economy and flexible working and things like that, whereas the unions, like who arguably the paymasters, are more concerned about security and workers' rights and things like that. So trying to be a bit of both, isn't it?
Yeah, Bishmark, have you noticed anything specific to your businesses so far? Or again, talking about chatter and vibes about what might be coming?
Who do you want to go first? I don't.
Go first, especially as you're talking.
Okay, that's pretty much all the time, isn't it? So, but yeah. So I think people, a bit of confidence is returning. I think you're right, Anthony. People are still a little bit worried, like what's going to happen. And again, the way it's largely being portrayed is that there's going to be all of these new employment laws, and often being framed that it's anti-employer. And I'm not sure that in reality will be the case. And I think sometimes, we read these things, we take it in, and we just kind of take it for read. And we need to ask ourselves better questions sometimes, I think. Are tighter, if at all it is tighter, or are laws that will be perceived to be, more in the favour of the employee, are they bad for business? Are they bad for business? Could it improve retention? Could it mean that, I think in any time we have, do you remember when WTR came in, previously when people had no holiday pay and such like? At the end of the day, the best employers were already doing what was right and what was good, and then they got the better employees, so is it necessarily going to be bad? Perhaps not. Perhaps it could be a good thing. I do think we need to retain flexibility, but I also think one of the things that's very encouraging, even though if it was a little bit bewildering to me and my wife, she's still moaning about it, is that the financial markets haven't, kind of crashed and burned. And in fact, if anything, sterling's still very strong. So if I use my UK card when I'm in Austria, it's ludicrously expensive. So, I have to make sure I'm using my Austrian bank account. So things like that. And I think there's been some, I would say probably a few modest nods of approval really from the financial markets, which would probably surprise a lot of people. But, the FTSE 250 has outperformed the FTSE 100, and the FTSE 250. I mean, I'm by no means an expert, but that's much more exposed to the UK economy and the UK market, whereas the FTSE 100 is much more an international focus. But that bodes well for British business, which in turn bodes well for British recruiters who are serving those businesses. And I think part of the problem is we often rely, and I know I bang on about this quite a lot whenever we get online, but people focus so much on what's in the media and don't look at the empirical evidence that is in front of us. So, actually, if it continues in that vein, it's not looking too bad, and people need to have a bit more confidence and appreciate that. And also, like we say, yes, there is this 22 billion black hole. I mean, part of me says we should be investigating that and putting people in prison who made that happen, because that's stealing our money. That is embezzlement of the public purse, but they've got bigger fish to fry. And like we all said in our last meetup, whoever got in, poison chalice, and you're not going to change anything overnight. That's my take on it.
Mark, what drives it, Thomas Lee?
So, yes and no. The conversations I'm having at the moment with a lot of managing directors and people that are looking for staff is they still just can't find good skilled people. Their biggest concern is that over the up and coming employment laws. Something as Bish was speaking just then, something just came to my head about the last 30 years. We've had tighter employment laws than we have today. And that was during the last Labour government. And if you remember, the last Labour government had one of the fastest growing economies in all the governments in the last 100 years, I think it was. Wow. So does tighter labour laws really affect business? Well, there's evidence to say no, it doesn't. So when you look forward, I think the greatest problem from the people I speak to is skill sets. Where are we getting them from and how we're going to get them in the country, or what we're going to do internally as well. And that's the key, I think, to growing the economy over worrying about the labour laws. And also, like I said in the last time we all met up, the tighter labour laws will actually help candidates make better decisions of moving jobs. The risk is only 6 months, not 2 years. So you're going to have better people moving jobs at the same time.
And just stick with you on that point, Mark, actually, because I remember Ant and I did a live, must be over a year ago now, about skill shortages in this country and how we're going to find our way out of it. And I'm going back a long way now. If we're still struggling with the same things now, what can be done and what might be done to get us out of that? Well, we're still talking about the same things a year down the line.
We're talking about the same things, aren't we? So I think personally, and I don't know if anyone will agree with this, I think looking for our skill sets internationally outside of Europe is probably a bad idea, especially the type of roles we're talking about. Skilled engineering roles, skilled nursing, that type of stuff. Instead of, we seem to just want to go to countries like the Philippines and Africa to find these people, thus then frustrating the Farage type people, saying there's too much immigration. When we had open borders with Europe, nobody knew, nobody cared, and there was an influx of good, skilled people coming across the border to work in the UK and settle in the UK as well. There's your problem right there, is that we've cut ourselves off from really one of the best places to recruit from in the world, which is Europe. But that's one part of the problem. The second part of the problem, we're just not training enough people in the UK. Universities have gone wild with international students, and there is not enough attraction of, I hate to use the word local people, is that the right word to use? But there's not enough attraction of youngsters today to go into these key areas. Now, that could be a multitude of reasons. It could be an educational problem, but I think it is an apprenticeship problem and a university problem at the same time. And I think those are the two areas.
And going off what Mark said there, especially the Europeans, Islam has been over in Europe recently, shaking hands and talking about a different approach to our relationship. Is that something you'd welcome on the back of what Mark was just saying?
Yeah, definitely. There has been kind of a negative effect of the isolation, and I think we do need like some kind of a slick permit to work or visa system. Like, we are kind of in a post-Brexit situation now, so I don't think we can kind of go back to full free movement of labour necessarily. But it's good that we've got the dialogue open. I think we do need to be attractive kind of internationally to to import skills and people to kind of run the country, and talking health and social care as well, obviously. Kind of bit of talk around the expo as well is that there's some optimism just about economic growth for next year anyway, which I'm all for, and also because of the, I don't know whether you call it the geopolitical landscape, like France and Germany seem to be in a bit of a pickle, and kind of, as Neil Carberry said, the US kind of is what it is as well. We're starting to look attractive and stable, like in comparison. So we may actually become more attractive as as a country for employers to invest, and people to settle as well. So there's some cause for optimism. Agreed with Mark in terms of the universities as well. If there's just a mismatch in between what's being offered and what employers want, and students being channeled down the wrong paths, like, for want of a better word, like they're coming out with 50 grand debt and a fine arts degree, and that's not what the engineering company down the road requires. So I think that the new form of apprenticeships is going to be kind of really valuable, and that's more modern anyway, in terms of relevant bite-sized education to suit the kind of needs of business and the skills requirements right now, rather than your 5-year plan to a traditional architect or something like that.
Yeah, Bish, you're in a great position, having spent 6 months of your year in Austria, to know what Europe sees Britain as these days. Do you agree with Anthony? We're starting to look at attractive proposition for the first time in a long while.
Economically, not so much from an employment point of view for people with skills to come over here, and I'll tell you the reason for that. So first of all, the skill shortage and labour shortage is a European-wide issue. It's not particular to the UK. So Western Europe in particular, we've got very much ageing populations. And we have also got negatively growing population. So therefore, we have to get people from elsewhere as well. So even if we could train everybody who was coming out of the school system into the doctors, nurses, engineers, whatever we needed, there still wouldn't be enough people to fill those roles. So that's the first thing. We do have to go to international markets to bring people in. As Mark said, we did have access for a long time to the closest and most aligned market where also the skills come from. But hey, they need us more than we need them, I think, was a slogan somewhere, which feels like way back when. Turns out that wasn't true. The reason why I say no, we're not becoming more attractive, is that you can put whatever visa system in place that somebody can satisfy those requirements. But at the end of the day, the way that our country has been portrayed in the press abroad and domestically is we are not particularly welcoming to outsiders. So you've seen that, big political changes that have happened have been on the back of largely immigration as a, pretty much a single kind of policy.
And legal immigration as well.
And legal, absolutely, legal, So we're not by people who have the skills and would 5 or 6 years ago have put. So I spoke to a medical recruiter some time ago, and it was just in the throes of as all Brexit was going through, and they've recruited from an international market for 25 years, and they said that whenever their application goes out, they have a list of, by preference, what countries they would like to move to. And it always used to be UK, and then it would be Germany. That's, you know, other parts of things. But the UK was pretty much always the number one request. And now we're just not. Like we're way down, like 5, 6, 7 down, and that's, I think, is because of the perception that immigrants have of the welcoming or not that they're going to get coming to the UK, and that's quite sad actually, because we all know that most people are not racist bigots, but most people don't hit the headlines. So, you know.
Interesting. It'd be interesting to see where it goes from here. See if we can fix it. We've got about 5 minutes left, folks, but we've got to get out of here. So let's just finish off with a briefish, if possible, how things gone so far, and how do you see the next 12 to 18 months going? And we'll start with Ant, because your Wi-Fi is still great.
Okay, so yeah, it feels like longer than 100 days in a way. It's been a bit of a circus, I think, but albeit, you know, with the caveat that it's probably the media's just angle on it. You know, I'm not happy about the you know, the I said about cronyism and kind of sleaze and bribes and revolving door and things like that. I'm a bit suspicious about what the reasons why kind of Sue Gray's had to move on and things like that, and whether she was already kind of linked to the kind of Labour Party at the time when she was doing the Partygate report and things like that. But maybe it doesn't matter. They've put the right things in place, I think, kind of slowly economically. There doesn't seem to be too much to be concerned about in terms of, you know, the spook in the you know, employment market because of the Labour rules. So, you know, I think if they just kind of show some consistency from now on, we probably are heading in the right direction, and the adults are potentially back in the room. So I'm kind of giving them some slack. I'm going to wait and see what happens.
Wow. Over to you, Mark.
So my biggest focus isn't on the boring Labour government, because I just think they're going to learn from the problems that they've got at the moment. We are going to see marked improvements. I think the budget is probably going to be somewhere in the middle of everyone's expectations. There won't be any surprises, I don't think. No, my concentration and my focus is the complete annihilation of the Tory party at this moment in time, and how either Jenrick or Baynock is going to drag them as far right as possible, stand on Farage's grounds, and lose even more voters to the Lib Dems, mostly, I think, rather than Labour. But this, to me, just secures another 5 years of Labour government. It's someone said on the internet yesterday, which made me laugh, it's another gift that Labour will have to put down as an expense. But that's how I see the next kind of 18 months. It's not so much what Labour's going to do, it's so much what the ground around Labour's going to do. The opposition, Farage, what problems is he going to cause in the next 12 months? For himself mostly, especially after the Farage riots of the summer. So we've got to look at it as kind of there's going to be a lot of detraction away from Labour's government soon, and it's going to be in the form of the Tories absolutely annihilating themselves over the next 4 years.
They self-sabotaged again, didn't they? Like, and kind of voted their best candidate out because of some kind of tactical voting blunder, wasn't it?
Tactical voting cleverly wasn't so clever, was he? And he was, in my opinion, he was Labour's biggest threat. They must be whooping in the halls of Downing Street right now. Yeah. Honestly, they must be celebrating the fact that they are going to win the next election, even as shit as the people think they are today. Sorry, I meant to swear.
And I expected more from the Lib Dems, really, who I actually voted for in terms of opposition, and they certainly haven't got much airtime anyway. Maybe it's just that again, but.
I think Mark Labour's marketing department could do with giving you a bell. That was a very rousing few minutes there. I know. Number. Fish finishes off, please.
Do you want to rephrase that one?
Happy ending?
Sarah, could you finish the show in a timely manner, please?
I don't know about timely. I think for me, really, it's all about, I think, Mark, it was you who said we just need somebody who's going to steady the ship. And I'm just quite pleased that, I mean, I felt like towards the end of the last Tory tenure that we were just kind of plummeting into this almighty shit show of just sleaze, corruption, completely anti-British, all dressed up in a Union flag, anti-British sentiment and policies in a lot of respects, which were all very self-serving. So I've kind of got to the stage where I think the whole system needs changing. I don't really feel comfortable voting for any of the parties. If we had to do another election tomorrow, and I just think we need somehow to change the system. There will always be an element of, people kind of lining their own pockets a little bit, but we need to look at how do we make it so that anybody who gets into a public office is beholden to serve the interests of the country and our citizens, and not personal and party interests. And for me, that's what it needs to boil down to. Call me naive, but I'm a big believer in all you really need to be able to make things happen is the will to do so.
A good note to finish on. Before you go, Bish, just tell us where people can get hold of you.
You can find me on LinkedIn at Sarah Bishop, or at recruit.co.uk. I'm going to do a little mini shameless plug for my business coach, Nick James at Expert Empires, because he's not here today. I'm at one of my masterminds, so I've stolen his office, and it's very swizzy. Thanks, Nick.
Over to another snazzy office. Mark, where can people get hold of you?
What did I say last time? By the neck, wasn't it? Oh.
And we had
LinkedIn,
a lot of that, which I didn't mention.
I know, I heard. Yeah, thanks to my non-fans. No, LinkedIn. Just reach out if you want to speak to me. I'm happy to talk about politics in private, mostly though.
Safer, yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks a lot for joining us from the Expo today. Enjoy the rest of your days ever.
Thanks very much. Yeah, you know where to find myself and Macstaff, and thanks again from me to obviously Bish and Mark. I really appreciate your kind of wisdom actually, and we haven't agreed on everything, but I certainly respect the opinions, and I've learnt a lot as usual.
Same.
If you've enjoyed
Likewise, thanks for the invite. Sorry.
Yeah, same here.
You're welcome. If you've enjoyed today's broadcast, folks, we have had 2 previous politics-related debates. We did one before the election came along, which was that one, and then we did one post-election, like a few days afterwards, which was incredibly cool, part 2. And if you can find those on the Macstaff YouTube channel, along with lots of the videos that we've produced over the last couple of years. If you want to find out more about Macstaff on the website, the address is on the screen now. If you are watching us on YouTube today, please hit that subscribe button and you'll find out when the crazy gang is back on again. That just leaves me, Martin Crowson, to thank you all for watching us today. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or LinkedIn. All our guests today, Anthony, Mark, and Bish, thanks so much for joining us again. We'll catch you here again very soon here on Macstaff Live. Thank you. Bye-bye.